Hi, I'm Kelsey from RoughAndTumbleFarmhouse.com, and today we are going to talk about some pre-baby arrival meal prep. So before I had my first daughter, I definitely did some meal prep, probably not as much as I'm doing this time, but since I already have a 2-year-old running around and another baby due here in about a month, I'm starting to do some meal prep, and I thought I would share with you some of my best tips and recipes that I am using to get ready for baby number 2. Now my husband, God bless him, can barely cook. He pretty much, cooking for him is like a box of mac and cheese or putting in a pizza. That's about the extent of his skills. And so meal prepping is something that is really important for me to do, so that way when I am completely tuckered out with a brand new baby, I'm not having to worry about what's going to be for dinner all the time. I've got some stuff I can just pull out of the freezer, pull out of the pantry, and make really quick. So my first tip when it comes to pre-baby meal prep is to simply double and triple your recipes now if you can. In my downstairs freezer already, I have a whole stack of apple crisps because it is the apple crisp season. So now I was in the mood for a crisp. Instead of making a single one, I went ahead and made 3, 1 to eat and 2 to stick in the freezer because, hey, you're gonna want some sweets too. Also already have in the freezer at least 2 meals worth of a really delicious ham hock soup that I made extra of. I have some extra of a pasta sauce that I made, and then I also have taco meat saved up in here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I also have tons of peppers from the garden this year that I have already sliced up and frozen, and these will last us most of the winter, honestly. So we have got delicious organic peppers that cook up really, really well, and pretty much all the work is already done to get them prepped. Today I was thinking chili sounded really good for supper, and so instead of making just a small pot of chili for me and my husband and our little toddler, I went ahead and tripled, maybe even quadrupled the recipe. I just kind of eyeball it with chili. And so here you can see I have a huge pot of chili, and all the leftovers are going to be put into a gallon Ziploc freezer bag and stashed away for later. So soups, stews, chilies, those sort of things are really great to put in the freezer, especially if you're going to be having a fall or winter baby. They usually freeze really well, and they make for a really filling, delicious meal. One thing you do want to avoid when it comes to soups and stews, things like that, is potatoes don't always freeze the best. I mean, they're not terrible, but the texture can get a little bit kind of grainy, a little funky. And also dairy sometimes, again, it'll freeze fine, but it's how the texture is once it reconstitutes. So one thing that you can do is you can make a big batch of whatever you're going to have for dinner that night, and then before you add the potatoes or you add the cream or whatever it is, take away what you're going to freeze and then just add the dairy or the potato to the batch that you're going to eat that night. Another tip that I have for you is to prep just one ingredient. So a lot of meal prep lists that you look at will suggest all different sorts of make a chicken this and make a pork this and a beef this. And a lot of times if you pick just one meat and prep a whole bunch of meals around that one meat, it makes things a lot easier to manage. So what I did with my first daughter, and I've done pretty much the same thing again, is I used ground beef as something, because ground beef you can thaw, you can cook it, and then you can refreeze it really easily. So I'll have a link below to some recipes that I like to use with ground beef. I like to do frozen taco meat because tacos cook up really quick and easy and are a great meal option. I also do the chili with ground beef. You can also make meatballs as well with your ground beef, and meatballs are awesome because you can use them for a bunch of different things. You can do Swedish meatballs or put them in some sauce and make spaghetti. You can do sweet and sour meatballs, all sorts of things. So they're really nice to have made up as well. And the last thing I like to do with ground beef is to go ahead and make up some burger patties. So they are already seasoned, already pattied. Again, you just got to pull a few of them out of the freezer. And if you check out the blog post below, I'll have some tips about the best way to freeze your burger patties. The next thing that I like to have on hand and stocked up for postpartum is pasta. Now, pasta, of course, is one of those moderation things, but when paired with some of the other ingredients that we've already prepped, it can really be a pretty healthy option. As you can see here, I have a couple of favorites. One is this really great ramen that I got from Costco, and this ramen is great because it's super high in protein. I like to cook the ramen up as it is instructed on the package, and then just chop up and stir fry some veggies and toss them in there. You can add another protein if you want, but already there's so much protein in the pasta, you don't even have to. Though we do like to add crushed up peanuts and a little bit of sriracha on top. So good, so easy. Even my husband cannot mess this one up. I also like Annie's organic macaroni and cheese. Now, obviously, this is not going to be an everyday sort of a thing, but there are definitely days lunch times, or heck, even dinners where you are just so tired and the idea of doing a from scratch macaroni is even too much. Another thing I like to get, this also comes from Costco, but I'm sure you can get it other places, is this organic Italian pasta. You can get spaghetti, and they also have a multi-pack that has, I think, 4 or 5 different varieties of pasta. And again, they cook up in less than 10 minutes, and just having them on your shelf so you can go ahead and pull out some of those meatballs, cook some of the pasta, and you can have dinner ready in like 20 minutes. Now let's talk snacks. Snacks are so important when you're postpartum, especially when you have little ones running around, so having healthy snacks on hand is awesome. Some of my personal favorites are just some mixed nuts are really good to snack on. Popcorn, another one that's really easy. A lot of people don't know that you can put just about 1/4 cup of unpopped popcorn kernels in a brown paper lunch sack, stick it in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes, and you're gonna have a healthy snack that isn't full of weird, goofy chemicals and stuff and additives that you get when you buy instant popcorn. So just buy a big bag of organic unpopped kernels, get some of those brown paper lunch sacks, and you can easily make a quick snack for you and your family. Another favorite of mine is apples and peanut butter. It's great because apples will last for months in the fridge. You get a big old jar of peanut butter, and again, you've got a good protein and you've got some fruit in there, and it's crisp and delicious but filling. So apples and peanut butter are another one of my favorites, and kids typically are a fan of that too. My last one in terms of snacks that I always make sure I have around is Greek plain yogurt, whether it's yogurt I've made from my own cows or if it's just buying it again from Costco or Aldi. They tend to have the plain Greek yogurt, and I really recommend getting the plain, not the vanilla, because if you get plain, you can make it a savory thing or a sweet thing. You can use it in place of sour cream just to save a little space in your refrigerator, and most people won't even be able to tell the difference. But you can add some savory herbs to it and make a really good dip for carrots, or again, a topping for tacos or for a gyro if you're into that sort of thing. And you can also then use it as a sweet thing and mix it in with some nuts, some fruit, and make a granola. Yogurt is so versatile and can also be used in things like smoothies. So I really recommend having some Greek yogurt on hand. One of the last things that falls into the snack category for me is to have some lactation bars or just kind of some mama energy type bars. I will link below to the recipe that I use. It's not my recipe, but I use it with my daughter Jane, and these things are so delicious and they freeze really well. And the recipe is for cookies, but I'm from the Midwest, so I made them into bars instead, mostly because I'm very lazy and just wanted to throw one pan in the oven. These things remind me of something that I would mix up for my animals when they've just had a baby. It's got oats and whole grains and chocolate chips, maybe not chocolate chips for the animals so much, and molasses and all sorts of great things in there that are really going to kind of fortify you. They're going to fill you up, but also taste really good. So I remember when I was breastfeeding my daughter, she had a really hard time nursing when she was just little, and so I would be up 3 times a night for at least 1.5 hours each time trying to get her to nurse. And so these things are an absolute godsend, and they freeze really, really well, and honestly are even better when you eat them right out of the freezer. All right, so those are some of my tips and some of my favorite recipes that I like to have prepped for when baby comes. Of course, there are a ton of different things you can do. Maybe ground beef isn't your thing, so you want to use ground turkey. Maybe you're vegetarian, so you want to prep a bunch of vegetarian soups and things like that. I can link below too to my sweet potato quesadilla recipe. That filling can easily be made in bulk, stuck in the freezer, and then pulled out to make a really good quesadilla dinner. There's all sorts of things that you can do to prep for baby. And my biggest tip is to just do it little by little. Most stuff stays great in the freezer for up to a couple months, especially if you're using actual freezer bags. So go ahead and just take your time and start prepping even a couple months out before the baby comes by doubling your recipes, cooking with that one ingredient, and before you know it, you're gonna have a freezer absolutely stocked. So when that baby comes, you can just sleep and get a little rest and not be worried about what you're having for supper. Hopefully this is helpful. Please add in the comments below if you have any other really great preparing for baby recipes. It would be great to get some more ideas shared amongst us. You can always find a new video here every single week and 2 new posts over on the blog about farming, family food, and fortitude here at our Rough and Tumble farmhouse.